Welcome, everybody. Thanks for attending. Once again, I'd like to thank the Village Board for making the use of this community center available to us. Thank the Rec Department for help in setting it up. Thank Mr. Zegarelli for saving us the costs of a custodian by acting as our chaperone. Thank all of you. I know you're not the custodian, so anyway. And thank all of the residents and the nominees for attending. Also want to thank Cecilia Roars, and this time I think I pronounced it correctly, of Visual Touch Media for videotaping this meeting. And this meeting will be rebroadcast on Altice Channel 15. There's a schedule in the back which lists the broadcast times: Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. I'll also ask any resident who hasn't provided their email addresses to the caucus to list them on the sheets in the back, and ask for anybody willing to volunteer to collect signatures on the petitions that we will need to circulate and file in order to obtain a ballot line on the March 18th election ballot. So if you'll list them with Larissa in the back, she's going to be running that for us. At this point, I'm going to ask the secretary to read resolutions regarding the nominees and the People's Caucus Executive Committee.
From here, right there. Right here. So we have two resolutions. One is the resolution to cast the ballot for uncontested nominees for village offices. And it reads, resolved that the secretary shall be directed to cast one vote for each of the uncontested nominees for 2-year terms. Sabine Werner, trustee, and Kevin Hunt, trustee, for a 2-year term. Such uncontested nominees shall receive the caucus endorsement in the village election on March 18th, 2020. I need a motion.
So moved.
Name and address, please.
Charles Trainer, 101 Hawthorne Place, Briarcliff.
And second?
Rachel Leibacher, 36 Maple Road.
Okay.
Just correct Sabina's name, Sabina, even though it's spelled Sabine.
I thought it was Sabine.
That's spelled correctly, but it's just pronounced Sabina.
Oh, I'm sorry. Sabina Werner, trustee. Minor correction. Do I need another motion?
Yes?
Okay.
Second again.
Okay.
Let him read the resolution. He doesn't have a big part. Go ahead.
So reread it? Okay.
The second resolution.
Okay, second resolution. Resolution to cast ballot for Executive Committee of the People's Caucus. Resolved that the secretary shall be directed to cast one vote for nominees: Aaron B. Stern, chair; Larissa Wayne Palmeno, vice chair; Zachary Giampa, treasurer; and Brian Crowley, secretary, to serve as the Caucus Executive Committee for 1-year terms commencing April 1st, 2020. I need a motion.
So moved.
Name and address, please.
Charles Trainer, 101 Hawthorne Place, Briarcliff, Manor. The zip code is 10510.
Thank you.
Rachel Leibacher, 36 Maple Road, Briarcliff, Manor, New York, 10510. I wrote the rest of my name.
And I certify that. Thank you.
Thank you. And there's one more thing for you to do regarding the
Yes.
minutes of the last Meet the Candidates meeting.
I'm asking that a motion be made to waive the reading of the minutes from the Meet the Candidates / debate meeting on January 16th, 2019, or from January 16th, 2019. Motion made by?
Jay Jugger Rose, 100 Larch Road.
Second by?
Second.
Name and address, please.
Brian Crowley, 65 Birch Road.
Okay. Motion approved, right?
Motion approved. Okay. At this point, I'll remind everybody that there are index cards in the back. If you would like to address a question to the candidates, they'll each have a turn to answer it. Please fill out the index card and give it to Larissa Palmeno, our vice chair, and she'll bring it up to me. I'll also introduce the other members of the executive committee: Aaron Spring, who's the secretary; Zachary Giampa, who's the treasurer; Clarissa Gioscia, who's the appointed member at large; and Larissa Palmeno, who is the vice chair. And as we introduced at the nominating meeting, the new secretary, who's on the slate for election by acclaim, is Brian Crowley, and he's in the audience as well. Okay, I think it's time for us to move forward, and we're going to give each candidate 5 minutes to make an opening statement to address the community, explain why they're seeking the position of village trustee, and we'll proceed from there. We'll start left to right and then go right to left on the questions.
From whose direction?
Left to right.
You go first.
Okay.
Their left.
Okay. Good evening. Last week at the nominating meeting, I shared a little bit about my background with you and the reasons I'm running for village trustee. Simply put, it's because I love Briarcliff. I feel it has tremendous potential, and I believe that with my experience and dedication, I can help further propel our village forward in ways that make us all proud to live here. For those of you who weren't here last week, my husband and I moved to Briarcliff 8 years ago and have 2 children attending Todd Elementary School, where I am actively involved on the PTA and as a class parent, and previously served on the audit committee for the school board. I have also served on the village planning board since 2015 and was a member of the B-Zone Advisory Committee. My professional background is in finance and community development, working with a diverse group of financial firms ranging from bulge bracket banks to local mission-based funds. I received my undergraduate degree from Cornell and my master's degree in finance and economic policy from Columbia. In terms of what I hope to accomplish as a trustee, as many of you know, Briarcliff is steeped in rich, underutilized, underappreciated natural and historic characteristics. Our parks and trails, however, can be further improved and marketed to derive economic benefits from them and preserve, if not improve, home values. Secondly, our central business district has the potential to be so much more inviting and attractive to businesses, residents, and passersby, which would improve both the character of our village and lessen the tax burden on residents. And under our current mayor and board of trustees, we are in the beginning phases of a streetscape project that could be transformational to our main street, and that seeks to combine safety improvements with infrastructure upgrades and street and landscape beautification to create a more vibrant downtown. Our merchants are engaged in this project too, as demonstrated by stronger turnout amongst business owners at Monday's streetscape meeting. Thirdly, in the coming weeks, the village will be receiving a comprehensive report with recommendations for potential uses of properties in the B-zone. Implementing these recommendations in a thoughtful and effective manner will be critical in attracting more commercial revenue for Briarcliff, while at the same time preserving the parts about this village that we all love. Having studied the B-zone for 2 years on the advisory committee, I believe I am qualified to help with this project. This is all to say that there is a lot of positive momentum in Briarcliff right now, which I am excited to be part of. Naturally, there are complicated issues and ideas to synthesize and then to translate into smart, economic, sustainable plans. As village trustee, I promise to fully dedicate myself to the projects I just mentioned and to new matters that arise, and to be thoughtful, patient, and open-minded when working with the community. I also promise to ask the hard questions when it comes to the future use of properties in the B-zone and to represent our community's needs and views in all interactions, not my own. Thank you all for being here tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Sabina, thank you very much for that opening. You'll get a chance to answer a bunch of questions in a few moments. Kevin, would you like to make your opening statement, please?
I would. Go ahead. Good evening. My name's Kevin Hunt, and I am a current trustee, and I want to say a very hearty thank you to everybody for all of their help and support this past couple of years. I've been a longtime member of the Briarcliff Manor Fire Department and Ambulance. I've been to a number of our neighbors' homes. Most of the time they never wanted me to come, but when they did want me to come, they wanted me to get there in a hurry. I'm very appreciative, again, of all the help and support I've gotten. I want to thank all of the past board members and the current board members, the mayor. Love to thank Phil Zegarelli for all of his help, support, and most importantly, patience over the last amount of time. It's been transformative. I've learned a great deal. I want to continue in the village trustee capacity because I think there really is a lot of very good stuff that can get done. It's at a very different pace than what I'm used to, but also I believe that my background in very strategic thinking and thoughtful debate among the people that I work with on the board. We don't always agree, but we always agree that we all need to be heard and all need to have each other's opinions and point of views acknowledged. And I think that we do a very good job of that. I really do. I want to thank Sabina also because I think that she'll make a remarkable addition to the board. I'm really looking forward to working with her as well. And most importantly, the People's Caucus Board, all of your current members, and Aaron particularly, and Larissa. What they do here, I think, is a tremendous service for our village because we don't have a lot of the contention that can come across with standard political parties. I think this is a terrific way to do it. I think that it's a very civilized way to do it, and we all get to hear what everyone else wants to say. It's a terrific thing, so thank you. Thank you indeed. Anyway, I'm starting to realize that I'm going on, so I just again want to say thank you everybody for coming tonight, and I look forward to having a discussion about topics of your interest. Thank you.
Mr. Hunt, thank you for that opening, and thank you for the kind words about the Caucus Executive Committee. Am I correct that you are now the longest tenured member of the current Board of Trustees?
Not until April.
Not until April, okay. Oh, that's right. I forgot, sorry. Yeah, you know. But I have an opening for you on the caucus.
Looking forward to sitting next to you very shortly, sir.
All right, we'll move to the question and answer session now. And since this is not a debate and we won't have responses to the prior answers provided by the trustee, we're allotting up to 4 minutes to answer a question. Feel free to answer it in shorter time if you're comfortable doing so. And if you run a little over, we're not going to hit you over the head with a hammer this time. Aaron's going to be polite.
Light ballot. Okay.
Light, no.
Uncontested, I have to be.
Yep. All right. Did I mention the broadcast schedule or not? I mentioned the dates, right? Okay. All right. Some of these questions have been submitted by residents of the village, some of them just now at the meeting, and the balance of them have been prepared and shared with the candidates, prepared by the executive committee and shared with the candidates in advance. So actually, we're going to surprise you a little bit, and we're going to start with a question from the audience. The mayor, Mr. Vesio, has submitted this question for the candidates to answer. What personality traits do you possess which will benefit the village having you as a member of the Board of Trustees? Kevin, we're going right to left on this and then back left to right on the others.
Fair enough. Personality traits. Wow, that's an interesting question. Thank you, Mayor Vesio. I appreciate your thoughtful interest. One of the things that I have been able to do in the course of my professional career is to really address issues in a very sort of dispassionate way. I tend to be less confrontational and more to be understood than to be, for me to understand more than to be understood. I want to encourage people to share their opinions. I want to consider them very thoughtfully and carefully before I make any decisions. I can tend to be a little bit short with people sometimes if I don't feel like we're all getting it also, but I'm working on that too. I think that a collaborative process is the single most important thing that we can do, and I look forward to continuing that with the current board.
Thank you for that response. And Sabina, what do you have to say? And if you want me to repeat the question, just let me know.
I think I'm good.
Okay?
Thank you, Mayor Vesio, for that question. I think probably the biggest personality trait, the first thing that came to mind is that I am very tenacious. And, you know, if there's a lot of work to be done, I'm very quick to roll my sleeves up and do it and understand the matter at hand. I've always been that way, extremely focused and tenacious. I'm also a compassionate person. I think people feel comfortable speaking to me and I'm interested in listening to others as well. I'm always come prepared. That kind of goes with tenacity. I have this stupid white binder here filled with information nobody's going to ask me about, just in case. And I am also collaborative. Looking forward to working with Kevin and with the other trustees and the village. I've enjoyed my relationships with them up to this point as a resident and as a planning board member.
Thank you, Sabina. And now you get to go first on the next one. Do you support maintaining the village's historic efforts, and I should say successful efforts, to limit tax increases and remain tax cap compliant?
I support taking care of the needs of the village using smart, economic, and sustainable planning. Thank you.
Kevin?
Just 4 minutes, right?
Just 4 minutes.
Yes.
Can you spell that for me?
In all fairness, I mean, I think I can't imagine a situation where we would proceed with something that exceeded that. Who knows what could present to us? But in the absence of anything cataclysmic, I think that we owe it to the residents of Briarcliff Manor to be fiscally responsible in the extreme. So thank you.
You know the SAT words?
Okay. Good luck with them.
Okay, the next question is Kevin's turn first. Where do you stand on pressing the town of Ossining to adopt the Homestead Tax Act in order to achieve more tax fairness between homeowners and condominium owners within the village?
It's an interesting question. It's something that we've given some thought to. For anybody who isn't familiar with it, the way that co-ops and condominiums are taxed for as a residence is different than that of single-family homes, and it's roughly half of what the tax is for co-op and condominium. I think that's where the fairness aspect comes into it, and it's been a long-standing thing. By enacting the Homestead Act, you can actually make it at parity, and what that does is it would eventually raise it for the co-op and the co-op and condo owners, and have a bit more of a tax relief from the standpoint of single-family homes. That being said, in Briarcliff, the vast majority of homes, 90% plus, are all single-family homes. So to enact the Homestead Act for Briarcliff, that would mean that there would be a few people who had their taxes go way up and a bunch of people whose taxes go down very, very little. So it's less of an issue for Briarcliff, unless the people live in the condominiums, which would be a big deal. But in terms of Ossining, it's very different because the co-op and condominium are far greater percentage of that. So that would be a much bigger deal. In terms of putting pressure on Ossining to change their laws, I think that would behoove us to be more supportive of them in terms of helping them consider how they want to do it. I don't know that I, as a board member, would feel comfortable pressuring them to enact any legislation that I couldn't tell without knowing a lot more about it, how that would affect what their financial state is.
Sabina, it's your turn now.
Well, I didn't know a lot about this issue until I received this question today at like 10. But I did have a chance to review a report that was completed in February 2019, commissioned by the town of Ossining to study the impacts of the adoption of the homestead, non-homestead property tax system, which you're probably familiar with. From what I read, I don't think the town will implement any changes to the tax rate until the state revises its policies to effectively mitigate the negative impact of any change on the town's residents. Also, I'm not aware of any power the village board might have since we ceded our assessment authority to the town. This was one of the advantages we'd get back if we were a town village.
That was a bit of a setup question for the next one.
Okay.
The village has, and you're first this time.
Okay.
The village has long considered the possibility of becoming a coterminous town village, in part to achieve a fairer allocation of the tax burden with the town of Ossining. Are you willing to try to take the actions required to move this forward?
I support doing what is best for Briarcliff, and from what I can tell, the town of Austining provides us with very little benefits. However, given the fact that we are within two towns, Austining and Mount Pleasant, it's not as simple for us to convert to a town village as it would be for, say, Mount Kisco.
Okay, Kevin?
This is a thorny issue. If you look back to the People's Caucus debates from 2005, I think you'll find this question being discussed. There are a lot of thorny issues associated with it. There's a number of different options to consider. We combine with Austining, which has a lot of downside to it. The ideal thing to do would be to just incorporate ourselves without any Austining influence at all, or to limit that, or to incorporate some small parts of it in order to be able to do that. We provide about 40% of the tax base for the village of Austining, a town of Austining, outside tax revenue, which is a lot, and that's far more because the real estate in Briarcliff is assessed at a higher value. That being said, in order to be able to do that, which would be the ideal, you'd have to get everybody to agree. And now, why would Austining agree to let us secede from the town of Austining if we're providing so much support to them? Sabina was absolutely correct in that what we get from Austining is some services, and in terms of what we would have to wind up getting for ourselves, we'd have to have a new receiver of taxes, I believe, and a town assessor. We'd have to hire that. We'd have to own all that too. And there's some other slight things that would have to be considered to doing it. What I think makes sense is to really look at what this is going to mean for us, and to really better understand it, and to see if we can find a way to make this work if it's something that needs to work, or to find a reason to say why it absolutely won't. But it behooves us to look into it. The state really is looking to have towns and villages at least look to combine services in order to be able to make it more efficient in their eyes. So we do have, I think it makes sense for us to at least consider it from the standpoint of looking like we're good state citizens.
Thank you, Kevin. And this question, you get to start first. I think it's possibly a little bit tongue-in-cheek. Of all the current trustees, who would you say is most adorable?
Well, Sabina.
She's not a current trustee.
Phil Zegarelli. Or my second choice would be Chazar, obviously.
Okay, well, Sabina, do you have anything to add to that?
She agrees with me.
No comment.
No comment. The person who submitted that question wasn't brave enough to put their name on it. The next question comes from Cesar DeRose. I've lost track of whose turn it is to lead. I think it's Sabina's. Yep. What do you see as the most important issue facing the village in the next 12 to 24 months? And following it up, what plans, if any, do you have to address these issues?
I think there are two major issues that are coming up in the next 12 to 24 months, and that is the streetscape planning that we're doing that will be transformational, as I said, and this report that will be coming shortly of the B zones, whose recommendations will need to be analyzed and looked at very carefully and implemented thoughtfully. What ideas do I have would be to, I think that the streetscape planning that we're doing now is critical, and to continue to engage as many residents and business owners as possible to get feedback is key. And then once we have those plans, to find the right contractors and supervision to make sure they're executed in a responsible, fiscally responsible, sustainable way. And with respect to the B zone, I think having the right eyes on those reports and updating the laws in a responsible way, thoughtfully thinking into the future, is probably what I would do too. I hope that it's not a very elegant answer, but I think those are the two biggest things. They're going to be it's going to be a lot of work and just going to be needing a lot of attention.
Mr. Hunt?
Yes, thank you, Sabina. I would agree with Sabina in that the commercial properties, when they say the B zone, the commercial properties and the relationship with the commercial properties with the residential properties. And the B zone happen to be 5 different specific sites in the village that are designated as B zone, which have been commercial zones which we're looking to do something with because they're currently either underutilized or vacant. And there are other properties, such as like Pace property, which is not a B zone property, which also needs to be considered similarly. That is going to be a real important thing because have a vibrant commercial base in the village really does make a big difference when it comes to the taxes that the residents pay. I think that what we need to do is what we're already starting to do, and I think the current board has really done a tremendous job in terms of moving the direction forward. We currently have a moratorium on any building or any sort of anything on them while we consider what's the most important thing. I personally believe that managing expectations is one of the most important things we can do. We really need to figure out as a board and as a community what we really think is the best thing to do, and then to be able to project that so that when we do have applications come in, that they are something that we can seriously consider. We're not going to have a circus join here. We're not going to, put an annex to an airport or a car manufacturing facility. I don't know, whatever, making up absurd things. But obviously there's some things we wouldn't want and some things that we probably would want. And that kind of very strategic, thoughtful concern about these sorts of weighty decisions is really going to have one of the most lasting effects of anything that we do or could do for the future of this village, at least for the foreseeable future. I think that is the single most important thing right now, and there's a lot of other things that we need to do. I think one of the most important things we can do is continue making sure that we hear what the individual residents want to say and to react to that and to listen to see what kind of consistent themes there are so we know how to best represent our constituency in the village. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. And by the way, you mentioned something there that we didn't think of when we were putting together the B-Zone Advisory Committee report.
What's that?
A circus, and I know my granddaughters
circus.
would love that idea, so
Yeah.
maybe it can be considered.
Yeah.
Anyway, we also received an unidentified follow-up question to an earlier one from a member of the audience. Why are we still discussing the Ossining issue regarding Homestead Tax Act without a final answer since 2005? Well, I'm sorry, that must have been the question of coterminous town village, not the Homestead Act.
It is something that has not gone away. It's something that continues to be discussed and debated. It is something that is currently sort of a hot topic for New York State as they look for consolidation of services among municipalities. So it's not something that's going away. It's just something that we need to thoughtfully consider on how that would best suit what our needs are to make sure that we're not giving up anything we don't need to give up or taking on anything we don't need to take on, and making sure that whatever decision we would make on that, we'd get as appreciable of a benefit as we'd be able to have.
Thank you. Sabina?
I don't have anything to add to that.
Okay. Next question is, what is your position on the streetscape project currently under consideration by the village board? And we'll start with you, Sabina.
Well, I think I spoke about how awesome I think that is in my earlier speech and in the last question, but I don't know if everyone knows this, but the last time we redid our sidewalks was in 1972. So we are definitely due for an upgrade. And I think the streetscape project would be transformational, and I encourage community members and local businesses to attend the meetings, to participate, to be informed, and to be part of the process to make our downtown safer and more vibrant.
Okay, Mr. Hunt?
I think the streetscape project is absolutely wonderful, and I've been absolutely really impressed with the amount of participation we've had with the community in the last 2 events that we've had here at the William J. Vesio Community Center. There's a lot of passion to it too. We've had store owners come. There are some issues that need to be addressed, no question about it, but we have no shortage of people who are willing to be engaged in that that collaborative process to be able to come up with something that really is. I said in my nomination acceptance speech that I love this village, and I really do, and I would love to see it look like the jewel it really is. Sabina's right; it's been a long time, and I was probably in elementary school when last time they really did some substantive changes in terms of the actual streets and streetscapes. There's a lot of things that need to be addressed, but I think we're heading in the right direction. If we focus on where we need to be, we'll wind up where we want to be. So it'll be a process. It'll take some money, but the good news is we have a plan to get it done. And I want to thank, again, the current board, the mayor for spearheading this, the streetscape committee. There's a lot of people who are very passionate about this. I'm really proud to be a part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. And the next question, and you start again, Mr. Hunt. What are your views on the village's current budget for capital spending, and how do you prioritize the projects that it covers?
The capital spending budget is an important one because it's longer term. We're talking about things that you buy that last 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. This village is also in a remarkably good position right now to consider capital projects, considering our AAA tax rating, our AAA bond rating. And that has to do a lot with all of the fiscal responsibility that the town, excuse me, the village has had over the past years, and a lot of very good management as well. As far as prioritizing it, right now we're talking about a bunch of different projects. We bought a couple of fire trucks. We're now looking at a bunch of DPW vehicles that need to be addressed, so that we can continue to provide all of the services to the village that they come to depend on reliably. And that is again, a contemplative, collaborative process. I think that the department heads do a terrific job of making sure that we're apprised of what their needs are in order to be able to come up with a good plan. And I think we currently, right now, have a very good plan that we're all very proud of. I have also been impressed with the different areas of direction, of concern that we've gotten from village residents, from other outside agencies. And that's all been, I think, really well handled from a village perspective so far. So thanks.
Sabina?
Well, the goal is to be long range in planning and thinking. The village has a 10-year capital plan for each department. As village trustees, we have to make sure that since our terms are only for 2 years, that we're guardians of what was done before and responsible for what will happen in the future. We have to collaborate with department heads so we know what their capital needs are. The objective is to avoid high taxes and spikes in tax increases in 2 years because we didn't plan appropriately or realize something was needed. I think it's crucial to be organized and to plan.
Thank you. Now we have a question that's ancient, even older than the previous question that was asked and cited to 2005. Some years ago, the village formed a committee to come up with a plan for the improvement of Scarborough Park. For the last few years, a question has been brought up at the candidates' Q&A session regarding the park, but nothing appears to have been done, and the erosion has infringed on this valuable asset. How do you feel about saving this waterfront property? At a minimum, would you be in favor of taking some action to stabilize the north and west sides to minimize further erosion, even if funding is not now available for overall park improvements that have been contemplated?
If you want to.
Okay. I feel strongly about saving this wonderful property, and am pleased with the efforts of the current Board of Trustees towards that end. The capital plan calls for $200,000 to be invested in the stabilization and renovation of the park over the next 2 years. The village is working with the Army Corps, the DEC, and the DEP to make sure everything is being done correctly. Briarcliff resident Krista Mastrocola, who has professional experience with these types of projects, has been assisting the village with the process on a volunteer basis. So I think things are coming along.
Thank you. Might be a good idea to put something on the village website, updating the community about it. Kevin?
This is a matter that's discussed at pretty much every board meeting. The good news is that there is a plan in effect, and it's actually a plan that's already being implemented. It's hard to see the shovels in the ground because you've got countless federal, state, and agencies, DEP, environmental, everything. It's a riverfront, so everybody gets involved. The good news is we've gotten a lot of the approvals already, and David Turiano, the village engineer, has been on top of this all the way, and I think we're going to start to see some improvements in the very near term. And again, it's a testament to the current board and even the past board for pushing this and understanding that it's an important project. And I just sort of bristle a little bit at the way the question's written, only because it's when they say nothing's been done, things have been done, and it's just, again, it's a matter of you don't see it until you see it. But again, I've always been impressed with how fast any of the board members or the village manager or whoever it is receives a question about something and how fast they get back an answer. And so, like I said, I'm thrilled to be a part of this. I really am. It's very exciting.
Well, I take full responsibility for that question because I just copied it from a prior agenda.
There you go. We weren't working on it.
So my apologies to the current
It'll be
village board.
several years ago.
Yes. This question, Mr. Trainer, that you've submitted, I believe has been covered in the presentations that the candidates or answers the candidates gave to an earlier question. So with your approval, I will waive it. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you for submitting it.
All right. And I don't know who this is from, but it's addressed to two parts, one part to Kevin and the second part to Sabina. You can each take a shot at it. How can you help with current needs of school? Is that within, I think it says reality? And what is your favorite place in Briarcliff and why? First part. Let's do it in parts.
I guess I'm supposed to go first, right?
Say it again?
I answered the last question, so I go first?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so as far as the schools go, there's a school board that has a number of exceptional members on it, and they are responsible for the schools. I mean, the board in of itself is very responsive to any of the needs the school needs, and we've collaborated with them on a number of issues or concerns in the past. So we would obviously that would continue. One of the things that makes this village a great place is the schools and the continued health of the schools. I think it's very important. There's also the side with the Austin schools, because they have their own school district, and we have residents in the village who have kids that go to the Austin schools, and again, we're in touch with them as well. And they have a good system over there as well too. So we have every expectation that we want all the schools to do well. As far as my favorite place in the village, probably no surprise, it's probably the fire department. They haven't gotten sick of me yet. It's been like 14 years.
And Sabina, the second part of that question was actually addressed directly to you. What is your favorite place in the village and why?
Oh. So I shouldn't answer the question about the schools? Or?
Oh, no, you can do that. We'll just
Okay.
reverse the order on how we do
Oh,
it.
okay. Well, my favorite place in the village is with my husband somewhere, I have to say. And we have really enjoyed spending time with our dog in Pocantico County Park. So that's my favorite thing to do and my favorite place to be. And with respect to the question about the schools, which I didn't totally understand.
How can you
but
help with the current needs of school? Is that within reality?
the needs of school.
Sorry, I
Okay.
didn't write it.
Okay, so, each of the schools have different needs. My kids are in the Briarcliff School District and are 5 and 8 years old, so I'm only beginning to learn all of the different factors that go into what makes a school great and different and what a school needs. Of course, I know that the Ossining School District is very large, and we're mindful of that when we think about some of the properties that are in the B zones that could result in additional children in that school district. What I was going to say to that question is I think that as a trustee, or as anyone who's involved in the recreation committee now too, has an opportunity to integrate the schools more through the development of our trail system and just integrating the communities more through recreation, whether it be at Chilmark Park and developing that into something that's more enjoyable and that's closer to that side of Ossining, or just doing more activities where both communities can be involved.
Just in case people don't know, we have a member of the school board of Briarcliff here, Michelle Werner, and a member of the school board of Ossining here, Aaron Spring. So we're covered on both ends. I don't know what more the village can do to help the schools than they're already doing, but if you have suggestions, I'm sure they'll be willing to entertain them.
Don't build in the B zone.
Okay, and here's a question in a similar vein, but slightly different. People who live in the village of Briarcliff that are in the Ossining School District pay library taxes to both Ossining and Briarcliff. I would also point out that the same is true of those who live in Briarcliff who pay Ossining taxes for the library because it's part of the assessment. That's been dealt with over many years. I don't know that anything has ever come of it. But how will you work to help fix this inequity or advocate to the proper body of government that can change this? And I think you're first with this one, Sabina.
That's my question, by the way.
I know, and when we met, you had this question too, and so I should have looked it up. I don't think it makes sense to pay for two libraries. So I agree that that's concerning, but I don't have any suggestions because I need to learn more about it.
I appreciate your candid answer.
I agree with Sabina that obviously paying for two libraries doesn't make a lot of sense. It's the way the assessments are done, and we can certainly take a look at that. And we don't have a whole lot of say over how the assessments are done in Briarcliff because the assessments are done in Ossining. But certainly if something comes up, we can look into it more and try to figure out what we can do. Because again, it does seem to be on its surface an inequity, but I'm not sure exactly what it is in terms of specifics at this point.
Thank you. I appreciate your answer, too.
I'll put my 2 cents in. About the only thing that can be done is to become a coterminous town village and adopt an assessment base that will put it into the Briarcliff School District for tax purposes. I don't know of any other way of addressing those kinds of issues, but I do point out that it is partially offset by the residents of the village paying for the Ossining tax. You have a comment? We're finished with our questions, so after the closing statements, I'll give you an opportunity to bring it up under other business.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so we're at that stage of the meeting where, unless anybody has additional questions that must be asked now, we'll hold it off until other business before we adjourn. Each candidate is now granted 3 minutes to offer a closing statement and bring up any other business they believe they would like the community to address.
Aaron, do you have a suggestion of who should go first, or should we do rock, paper, scissors?
Who went first?
Sabina did.
Okay, so you go.
I just want to say a hearty thank you to everyone who's here tonight, anyone who's listening. Like I said, this has been a terrific experience so far. I'm very, very anxious to get on and continue the good work that we've started. I look forward to another great term to do that. In terms of anything, I just really want to make sure everyone understands that I'm pretty easy to spot on the street, and if there's any concerns, I'm always open to hearing anybody's concerns. And again, just a big thank you to all the current board members, the mayor, and the village manager, and I'll keep on doing what we're doing. And I may very well come to your house also still, so.
Hopefully not. Unless you
If I
want to come
do.
over for something to drink. Sabina, you get the last word.
I guess I just want to say that I promise that I will do all that I can to preserve what we love about Briarcliff, and to help further propel Briarcliff forward. I thank Kevin for being such a gracious co-nominee, if that's what we're called, and
Till the meeting's closed.
till the meeting is closed. And to the many people in this room who I've met with or spoken with, or who you've driven me around and explained things to me, I really appreciate everyone's help and support, and look forward to the next steps.
Okay.
And thank you to the People's Caucus Executive Committee for having this.
Okay, do we have any other business to discuss? Mr. DeRose, you had something you wanted to add?
It was tied to the question prior about the.
Would you like to come up?
I
No.
just wanted to
Okay.
say that I just wanted to say that I'm not 100% sure, but I think it's misleading to say that the coterminus would have anything to do with the library issue, because it's at the state level.
Absolutely correct.
I mean, we don't need to get into it tonight,
We won't. I'm not an attorney.
I just didn't want to have it be misleading for the public, that's all.
We have looked into it.
The simple response is Austin residents pay for their library out of the school budget.
Right,
Briarcliff pays out of the village budget.
right.
So becoming coterminous is not going to solve any of that problem.
And
Okay.
they're two separate charters of libraries, vastly different.
Okay.
Ours is a community library.
It's far from a
Theirs
trivial
is a
problem.
district library.
Thank you, but I will tell you there is a state council who has a different opinion. But that's fine. I just brought it up, and I'm glad you responded to it. Okay. You know what I think about attorneys, so. I would also very much like to thank Aaron Spring for his terms as secretary of the caucus, his involvement on the Ossining School Board, his starting a business, his planning to attend law school, his working on cleanup projects in Ossining on the weekends, his work at the Ossining Rec Center and teaching basketball to the younger children has eaten up all of his available time, so he has notified the executive committee that he can't serve going forward, but will remain active in caucus matters. And I thank him very much for the time he's spent. He's a very capable young man, and look forward to someday voting for him for higher office.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And
Record time.
I just wanted to say thank you to the Village of Briarcliff. Thank you to the current board and trustees. It was a pleasure to help get you guys elected, and I look forward to getting Kevin reelected and Sabina elected as well. Sabina actually has graciously said that she will go door to door in my neighborhood with me when we're going to get signatures. So I'm looking forward to introducing her to my neighbors. And even though it's uncontested, you know, all you guys have to do is wake up that day and come out and vote for yourself. But you guys are going to make the effort to go and meet the voters of this village, and that, you know, truly says something about your character, that you care, that you're willing to go out there and earn people's votes, even though, again, you only need one vote. So thank you to you guys for stepping up and running. You guys are going to be great candidates for this village. Kevin, you have a proven track record already. You have a proven track record within the community, Sabina, and I think you'll be an excellent trustee. And the village is truly privileged and truly blessed to have the board, the mayor we have today, and the board of trustees we have today and will have in the future. So I look forward to doing logistical work as we move forward, getting signatures, knocking on doors. I just need to take a step back from the leadership position, but I'm still here to work for the caucus. So thank you again.
Thank you for your kind words, Aaron.
Thank you, Aaron. May I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Michael, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who was that? I couldn't see. Peter. Peter. Thank you, Peter. Meeting is adjourned.